This is Elana Sztokman, and I'm excited to share with you the recording of the launch of my new book. It's called In My Jewish State, How I Was Trained in Pro-Israel Advocacy and Learned to Talk Back to My Culture, Find My Own Humanity, and Fight for Peace. The panel features some amazing speakers. Enjoy, and feel free to comment, like, share, or subscribe to my channels. Welcome. Welcome, all of you who are here today. I'm really honored. I'm honored to have you all join me in this conversation. I'm super honored to have really amazing speakers tonight, each one a force in her own right. Truly honored that you're all taking the time to be here and be part of this conversation. I'm Elana Sztokman, in case we haven't met. Nice to see you all. So tonight we're going to be talking about my new book, In My Jewish State. I want to tell you a story. The day after October 7th, 2023, the October 7th, I woke up in the morning to my WhatsApp pinging me. And that wasn't the first time that happened, because the day before, on October 7th, my whole day was WhatsApp pinging. So since October 7th, this has been a period of lots of WhatsApps and lots of groups and lots of emergencies and not wanting to miss anything. So this time, the WhatsApp pinging me was a little bit of a surprise. It was my high school alumni group. I had been added overnight to an alumni group from my Brooklyn yeshiva days. Someone, I guess, thought that it was a good idea to get me involved in the discussion that had to do with supporting Israel. So, in case you don't know this about me, I've been living in Israel for 30 plus years, since 1993, and I came here as a young, religious, married mother with my head covering and my long skirt and everything. And, October 7th was a very busy day for us. I didn't really need to be explained what October 7th was. On October 7th, at 6:30 in the morning, it was my daughter pinging me. Actually, I woke up on October 7th with lots of sounds from my upstairs neighbors. There was banging. The windows were banging. The windows were rattling. There was banging on top. And in my half asleep state, I thought to myself, my upstairs neighbor is having quite a workout this morning. Because that's what it sort of felt like. It felt like this constant banging on the floor of like someone dropping weights. And then the pinging of the phone started. And then I opened up the pinging, and it was my daughter in Ashkelon saying, Ima, we're under attack. We're on our way to you. This, of course, was Shabbat and Chag and the holiday of Simchat Torah, and that was a little bit unusual. So I jumped up, and then the banging and the pinging and the da-da-da-da-da. So that's when I looked at the news, and that's when I saw what was happening. My daughter came an hour later with her husband and young baby, her 3-month-old baby, and stayed for 3 months. Her husband went to reserve duty, where he stayed for 11 months. And then he came home for 6 weeks, and then now he's back in there. They haven't been back to Ashkelon. They moved out of Ashkelon. Anyway, that was part of what October 7th was. The other parts were my other daughter, who lives in Beersheba, also came with her kids while her husband went to reserve duty. My son, who lives up in Haifa, also came, and he was called up. And my youngest daughter was in the Army service to begin with. So all of my 4 kids were doing their Army stuff, and they were all affected. So we were very affected by October 7th. And so I didn't really need my alumni group to remind me to support Israel, because I was supporting and experiencing. Nevertheless, I was joined to this WhatsApp group. And in the WhatsApp group, somebody wrote in something to the effect of, kill them all, in Gaza, like just destroy them all. And then came on a surprise voice, which was my high school Zionism teacher. He came on, and he started sharing a lot of very Channel 14 type content things, also having to do with this idea of, raising Gaza. And so I wrote into the group, and I wrote, you realize that the people in Gaza are human beings, right? And that started me in a conversation with a classmate of mine who was running the group. We started private messaging, and she said, we're really worried about you. You should probably go back to just being a grandmother and let the rest of us do the thinking. that kind of thing. So for the fact that I mentioned the radical idea that people living in Gaza are human beings, for that, I was declared too old to have a brain and possibly mentally ill. And so that experience became a very formative experience for me with October 7th, with the October 7th aftermath, for a few reasons. One has to do with this very dehumanizing language that we've all sort of become accustomed to. And also this really strange realization that I had about this cycle, that somehow this language that I had been inculcated into as a teenager in my yeshiva days was still here in full force. And somehow there was this direct line from Brooklyn to Modi'in via Gaza or something like that. And so I started I don't know if I started, but I sort of continued. I had been taking an interest in this language of the war for some time, but I started to sort of quietly collect some of these conversations, in part using my anthropological hat. I have a doctorate in anthropology, and I've written a bunch of books on research and stuff, and I like to research. That's sort of like my one of my tools for grappling with hard things. So I started collecting some of this language and some of the things that I was seeing and experiencing. And I started to sort of analyze it. I never stopped really engaging in social media. Maybe towards the beginning of the war, it was on a lower flame. I think a lot of people for the first month, maybe 2 months, were sort of very careful in what we were saying on social media, a little bit, maybe. But at a certain point, I realized we can't keep doing this. This whole idea that we have 50 years worth of this messaging, this dehumanizing messaging that is being said in my name, that my alumni group is sort of, saying we're supporting Israel, which in theory is supporting me, the people living here, among the people living here and experiencing it. Something felt really wrong. Anyway, that's how this book was born. This book was born as a way to analyze some of this language. And I decided in this book to also write some of my own story. So I wanted, which is a little bit unusual for me. I don't usually do that in my books. I prefer to use my anthropological hat. But, it just sort of felt like these things can no longer be separated. And all of this is personal. It's both personal and professional and political for all of us. So the book that I wrote is in 3 parts. The first part is a little bit of my telling my story, especially since October 7th, and just in general, how I came from being the yeshiva girl in Brooklyn to what I am today.